Hello. All right. I'm checking. Hi, Sushmita. Let us give just few minutes, guys. It looks like the trainer just finished his one class, previous class. Then I think it's coming down.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope all of you had your dinner. Just asking.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Are we waiting for someone or?
No, we are waiting for you to start. Yeah, are we good?
Yes.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you can start actually.
Yeah.
Just give me a moment.
Can we start?
Yeah, just 1 minute. I'm just opening my tab. Let me share my screen. Let me know once you're able to see.
Yeah, we can see. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, this complete session will be on AWS with Python. Okay, so you already know what are all the topics we are going to cover in this particular sessions about Python and as well as in the AWS. So as per demo, I will just brief about the AWS. Okay, little bit of AWS, what are all we are going to cover in detail. Okay, and then few topics of AWS, and also I will show the content of Python, whatever we are going to cover in the Python section.
Yeah.
Okay. So
your name, please. Vishal, right? How you say?
yeah.
So Vishal, basically, yes. I mean, between Python and AWS, we are expecting more extensive knowledge in Python, and then how to use Python to develop applications in AWS. Okay.
Yeah. So the same we are gonna cover. Okay.
Okay.
So first, anyhow, I will start with Python. Okay.
Okay.
I will give the complete knowledge of Python. Okay, and then we'll start with AWS. Okay, and as we go with AWS, I will give some task assignments, and I will let you know how basically we can integrate everything or automate everything using the Python. Okay, and
Okay.
I got to know your expectation on this, but my expectation would be whatever the assignments I would be giving, I want everyone to be try. Okay, try
Absolutely.
that assignment,
Yeah.
or if you are getting stuck anywhere, in the next session we will discuss on that and we will sort it out, whatever the issue, whatever the doubt you guys are having. Because if you are not practicing it, if just following the class will not help much. Okay, so
I agree.
you have to practice as well, because AWS and Python are not completely theoretical. Okay, it's a practical thing. When you do, you will get to know more. Okay, so yeah. So okay, let's start then with Python course of content. Okay, I hope you are able to see the deck for Python.
Yes. Yes.
So so we are gonna cover we are gonna cover the introduction of the Python. Okay, from where it came, what it is, and all those things. And apart from that, we are gonna cover the Python variables. So each and every programming language is having some set of variables. Okay, how basically we define the variables, how we use the variable, how we access it, all those things. And then each and every program is having a few data types which get supported. Okay, so in Python also we have all the basics data type, which is a string, integer, boolean, and all. And apart from that, we have some advanced data type as well. Okay, so in advanced data type we have 4, which is list, dictionary, set, and tuple. So these 4 data types we will discuss more, because when we do the programming, these 4 data types comes into the picture a lot. Okay, when we do the complex programming and all. And in the introduction, I am also gonna give the brief of how we do the setup for Python, what IDEs are available, which means which particular software we can use to write a code. Okay, so apart from that, we'll have some Python operators as well. Okay, so it's all operators like arithmetic, binary. If we go, here. So we'll see. Yeah, the arithmetic operators, the comparison operators, assignment operators. So all these operators we are gonna see one by one. Okay, what this operator does, how to use it, and all. And then we go with the conditional statements. So how the if statement works, how elif statement works, how if else statement works. All this we are gonna see in the conditional statement. And then next comes to the loops. Okay, so we have while loop, for loop, and in while or for we use break and continue. How basically we break our program based on some specific output, or how we continue or skip a loop. Okay, so those things we will see in the loops. And once these basics are done, we are gonna jump into the advanced section where we are gonna learn about the modules, functions, and OOPS concept, which is object-oriented programming. Okay, so we'll see how basically we write a function and how we basically pass the arguments and the parameters for a specific function. Then we'll see how we make a module and package, which will be useful if you are using a same code again and again. Okay, if you are using the same code again and again, how basically we can create a package of it and share it with all. Okay, so that they can use that package to run that code again and again. Then we'll have file handling and the exception handling. So when we write a code, we deal with files a lot. Okay, so we have to read the content, we have to write the content, or we have to manipulate some file and all those. So that can be done using the file handling function in the Python. And then we have a exception handling. So it happens a lot. Satya, can you go on mute? Some background noise is coming. Okay, thank you. Then we are going to cover the exception handling in Python. So we know that when we deal with code, there are lots of error happens. Okay, some errors are useful, or some errors, when we get some errors, we run the code based on that error. Okay, like we have, if we try to divide anything with 0, we get 0 exception error. Okay, or dividend error. So likewise, we have lots of errors which we handle using this exception handling. Okay, instead of giving a very random message or error, we modify it and give it the error which can be understandable by the developers or users, basically not developer but the users. Okay, and then we have a OOPS concept. So we know that OOPS is having a different 4 pillars. Okay, so in that we are going to cover everything like inheritance, abstractions, and other tools as well. Okay, and then the last two is the regex expressions and the multi-threading in Python. So in the regex expression, we will see how basically we can catch any data, any word, or we can find any kind of string in the complete sentence or in a file, likewise using a regex expression. Okay, so that we are going to see in the regex expression, and this is I can say one of the biggest topic, OOPS concept and the regex expression in this complete Python course. And then we'll see multi-threading in Python. So we have a third-party libraries, or we can say, Python organization provides a library which is a thread, which we'll be using to provide a multi-threading in Python, which means a multiple codes runs together. Okay, so that is what the multi-threading is. So this is a complete course outline for Python. And once we are done with Python, what we are going to do, there is another document which is known as a Boto 3. Okay, so Boto 3 is a document where we will have all the APIs which is helpful to connect from Python. Using a Python, we can connect to AWS. Okay, either connection to AWS, or we want to do some automations like provisioning of multiple resources in AWS, servers, storage, or if you want to do some update, manipulate, or delete the resources, everything can be performed using those APIs. Okay, so what happens in real world whenever we interact with any applications? Okay, we do it through the APIs. Okay, and those APIs means it is formed in a very generic way. Okay, however, we will be writing a code. Okay, we will be calling a function, but at the back end, that function hits the API. Okay, and perform your task or activity. So that document, we will once glance that document, and that's a very, very important document if we want to do any integration or automation using a Python to AWS. Okay, so we'll go through that document once, and then we'll move to the AWS section. So any doubt in this or any, not doubt, but any question you guys are having in this particular Python section course?
No.
Okay, okay. Then I will move forward. I will share the AWS deck. Okay. So these are the course content for the AWS. Okay. The very first thing what we are gonna cover is the introductions. In introductions, what we are gonna cover basics of AWS. Basically, all the cloud service provider, like we have AWS, Azure, GCP, Alibaba, OpenStack. So all these cloud service providers and their cloud services are based on cloud computing. Okay, so cloud computing is a technology which on top of that, AWS, Azure, GCP, and Alibaba, and all those other cloud providers has developed their cloud services and providing their cloud services to the end users. Okay, so first we are gonna cover that cloud computing. What is cloud computing? Okay, and we'll understand the cloud computing terminology, and then we'll see few other topics known as cloud computing models. Okay, and the cloud deployment models. Okay, so each and every each and every cloud provider are based on this cloud computing model and the cloud deployment models only. Okay, and then we'll see why we need a cloud. Okay, because earlier everything was in private data centers, everything was working fine, but why we need a cloud here? Okay. Then we'll see what are all certifications we can get in AWS. Okay, so there are bunch of certificates, I believe 8. Yeah, I think so, 8 or 9 certificates which AWS offers. Okay, so we'll see a roadmap how basically we can get those certifications and what is the best way to achieve those certifications. Okay, and then we'll slowly move into the AWS introductory topics, like what is shared responsibility model. So when we are working on cloud, there are few responsible which should be owned by user, and there are few responsibility which should be owned by AWS. Okay, so this particular responsibility model gives a clear picture what is the responsibility for the user and what is the responsibility of the AWS on security. Okay, it's specific to the security. Okay, and also some so just think about if anything happens to the hardware, okay, if the hardware get compromised, if the hardware is not working, so what happens as a user, I have a UI, okay, AWS UI. Based on that, I perform some activity, but I don't be having a control on hardware. So if anything goes wrong related to the hardware, it's the AWS responsibility to fix it, okay, and wherever it is hosted, the security of that premises is the responsibility of AWS, because we never know where it is hosted, and we don't know what is the location of that data center. Okay, so these are the responsibility of the AWS. Now comes to the user. Suppose you are using a storage, okay, but by mistakenly you have made that storage public. As soon as you make that storage public, everyone will be able to access that storage, and the data inside the storage is also accessible to everyone. So this is your responsibility to make your data private, okay, to keep your data private, so that so that others will not be able to access it. Okay, so that is your responsibility. So likewise, in shared responsibility model, we have it is defined what is the responsibility of the user and what is the responsibility of the AWS. And then when we build anything in AWS, there are AWS well architect framework provided by AWS. Okay, so we have to follow that framework to achieve the best architecture for your solution. Okay, then we'll see a few terminology like scaling, high availability, and the fault tolerance. Okay, these we have to understand before jumping into the AWS section. Okay. Then once the introduction is done, we'll jump into the AWS core services. Okay, the very first one is in identity and access management. So that is a gatekeeper for each and every AWS account. Okay. So in introduction, I will also show you how to create an account. Okay, so you can create your free account for an year, and you can test it out to whatever the assignments I will be giving, or if you want to explore something, you can do in that particular account. The most of the services are free. Okay, there are few services which will be charged, and I will let you know what are all the services. If you provision, if you are using, you will get charged. Otherwise, most of the services in AWS are free for the first year. Okay, for the free account. Now, when it comes to the identity and access management, what happens? So this is a gatekeeper for any AWS account. Okay, if you are not providing an access to any identity, when I say identity, it can be a user, it can be a other programs, services, likewise. Okay, so it is very important to understand how the identity and access management works, because based on that, you are going to provide an access in your organization. Okay, so you are going to provide an access to few users, and the permissions should always be restricted to what they are going to do or what activity they are going to perform. Like in each and every organization, we have a server team, we have a network team, we have a database team. So suppose if I am from the database and I need an access to our AWS environment. Okay, so you will not gonna provide me server access, you're not gonna provide me network access, or you are not gonna provide me complete admin access. Instead, you're just gonna provide me a database admin access. Okay, that is very important, how basically we restrict the permissions in the AWS, how we form the policies. Okay, policy is the main key where we define the permissions for a specific entity, okay, or an identity. So once we have all this covered, we'll go to the compute. So compute is also two types, serverless compute and a compute. So here we'll see how basically we build a server. Okay, what are all the configurations we can do? What are all the different things we have which can be configured? Okay, once we complete the compute in AWS, we have a containers as well. Okay, so before understanding the container, we have to understand Docker. So what I'm gonna do first, I'm gonna brief about the Docker. Okay, how basically the Docker works. Okay, few basic commands and all those things. Once we have a clarity on Docker, at least a basic clarity, we'll move to a AWS service, which is known as a Elastic Container Service. So Elastic Container Service at the back end uses a Docker to build the containers. Okay, so basically, what we can use a single server and use a multiple containers inside that particular server to deploy a different application. Okay, but when we use a server, we can't deploy a multiple application in a single server. Okay, that we can achieve through the Elastic Container Service, and there are few other advantages as well. Okay, so we rule out the basic development of the environment. Okay, anyone can develop anywhere, create an image, and use that image to deploy the application. That's it. Okay, there is no dependencies on the development developer system. Okay, so those things is a advantages when we use a Docker. Then we go with the serverless compute. So serverless compute doesn't mean that we don't have a serverless. We will be having a server, but that will be managed by AWS. We are not gonna manage that particular server. Okay, so here we have a Lambda. Lambda is a service where you are gonna basically that is the service which you are gonna use most. Okay, Lambda and the state machines or a step function. Okay, so what is Lambda? Basically, Lambda is a kind of container where we keep our code. So in Lambda, we can write our code in Python. Okay, we schedule it and we leave it. Okay, we don't worry about the server, in what particular server it is running. Okay, and how it is running. That is not our headache anymore. Our only responsibility is to the code. If we have a working code, we put that working code in Lambda, we schedule it, or we can run it manually, depends. And we means we forget about the infrastructure. Basically, what particular server is used to run this code and how it is running. Okay, so that is why it is called as a serverless, where we don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure. Okay, once we write a code, it will always run in that particular Lambda. And similarly, we have a step function, which is basically an orchestration tool where we can orchestrate our solution. And then once we end with compute, we'll go with the networking. So in the networking also same. First, we are gonna cover the basics of networking. Okay, what is VPC CIDR block? What are all? How we do the subnetting? Then how we do the routing? Okay, what is the proxy server and all those things? Firewall, and also we are gonna cover the few basics of the network. Okay, so those things first we are gonna cover that networking basics. Then we are gonna move to the virtual private cloud. Okay, which is basically AWS services inside the AWS, which does the networking. Okay, so you must have heard a lot that AWS is a public cloud. AWS is a public cloud. Okay, so when we don't use any our own virtual private cloud, it is known as a public cloud. So whatever we host, anyone will be able to access. Okay, but we have an option in the networking to create our own private cloud as well. So when we create a VPC, basically we are created an isolated environment inside the AWS public cloud, which is known as a private cloud, and we restrict outsiders to interact with our resources. Okay, so that we are gonna achieve using a network. So we build our own network and we restrict outsiders to access our resources, whatever is hosted inside the VPC or a virtual private cloud. Okay, so once we do all the networking configurations, we are gonna move to the storage. Okay, so basically, broadly, AWS supports three different types of storage: block storage, file storage, and the object storage. So we are gonna learn all these three storage and their respective services. So if we talk about a block storage, AWS is having an elastic block storage service. If you're talking about a file storage, AWS is having an elastic file storage. Okay. And if you talk about the object storage, AWS is having a S3. Okay. Simple storage service, which is an object storage. So we are going to discuss everything about all these three storage, different configurations. And so whatever we will be learning here, like from the identity and access management till the miscellaneous topics, each and every topic will be having an hands-on. Okay, I will be creating a resources. I will be showing you how basically these resources are configured over the AWS management console. Okay, so don't think that currently I'm saying about each and every topic, so everything will be theoretical. No, theory parts will be bit less. There will be a more practical. Okay, where I will be showing a demo for each and every topic in the AWS management console. Okay, by creating the resources, by modifying the resources, or different scenarios and everything, I'm gonna discuss. Okay, then so next we'll have a database. So you know that we have a two different types of database, which is a SQL and a NoSQL. So we are gonna cover all the SQL databases, like we have Oracle, we have MySQL, MSQL, and everything, MariaDB. And then we are going to cover the NoSQL database, which is a DynamoDB. So DynamoDB is again an AWS in-house product. They have created this database which works on a NoSQL principle. Then once we work with all this infrastructure, obviously we need something to monitor my infrastructure as well. Suppose I'm running an application in the server. If the CPU utilization goes high, above 90%, your server will be hung. And once your server will be hung, what happens? Your request will not be processed. Okay, so we want to monitor that. We want to monitor the storage. We want to monitor the application status. So all this monitoring can be happens using a logging and monitoring section. Okay. So we have CloudWatch as a monitoring tool and CloudTrail as an auditing tool. So what is the difference between these two? Monitoring tool basically monitors your all resources. Okay. So suppose you have written a code. If there is any error in the code, that you can see in CloudWatch. Okay. If you are pushing a code to the CloudWatch, then what is CloudTrail? CloudTrail is basically an auditing tool. So lots of users will be accessing your AWS account. Okay, or I can say developers. Okay, developers or other business users. So using this CloudTrail, we can keep an eye which users is doing what. Okay, so it will basically holds all the API records of the AWS. Okay, and if anything goes wrong, suppose by mistakenly someone deleted the resources. Okay, so we can go there and check who is the person who deleted this particular resources and who is the responsible for this particular activity. Okay, so each and every activity, whatever you do inside the AWS management console, it will be tracked using this cloud. Okay, so this is a very important service which we have to understand and which we have to look how basically we can see those logs and how basically we can see the activities happening in your AWS account. Now, there are few application integration services as well, okay, which is basically helps to integrate the application. So decoupled architecture, we talk a lot about decoupled architectures, okay. So these application integration services are used to build our decoupled architecture. Okay, so there are two services only, SNS and SQS, which is basically a simple notification service, SNS, and simple queuing service, SQS. So what happens in queue? We have one as a producer and another one as a consumer. So we produce the data or a request, we push to the queue. Okay, it resides in a queue, and the consumer will pull data one by one or a request one by one and process it and keep it somewhere safe. Okay, so it's a decoupled. Suppose my producer, whatever the code I have written for producing the request, maybe that is not working. So which will not impact the consumer. And if the consumer is not working, that will not impact the producer. Okay, so that decoupled is in between, which is an SQS, which is separating these two code. Okay. Similarly, we have an SNS as well, where it's basically helps to notify. Okay, using those notifications, we can trigger the lambdas, we can send the message to the SQS, and we can trigger the other services as well in AWS. Then again, we have another service which is known as an infrastructure as a code. So what basically happens in this particular section, we are gonna learn how we can write a code to automate the building of infrastructure. There is one way which we can use in a Python and a Boto 3. Okay, there is another way where we can write a code either in JSON or a YAML, and when we deploy that template, basically we form a template. Okay, and once we deploy the template, whatever the resources we are mentioning in that particular template, everything will be built. Okay, so that is known as an infrastructure as a code, where we build an infrastructure as a code, and the CloudFormation are the service which we are going to use over here. So we have a lot of third party as well, like a Terraform. Terraform is one of the what I can say biggest infrastructure as code software which is being used. So that is another third party, but here we have CloudFormation as an in-house product of the AWS. And then the important topic comes as an auto scaling and the elastic load balancers. So auto scaling and the elastic load balancers are a very important topic when we deploy any applications. Okay. So auto scaling, what it does basically, it suppose, as I said, if you are running an application and if your CPU utilization is going above 90%, which means you are getting more and more requests, which is getting processed. Okay, so a single server is not able to handle it. So if you attach an auto scaling and provide some conditions, okay, if the CPU utilization is going above 70%, provision another identical server and distribute the traffic between those two servers. Okay, using that auto scaling, we can do it. So what happens as soon as it goes above 70%, it will provision another server, and now our requests are being processed by two servers. So obviously a load in the first server will be reduced. Okay, and the distributions of that request is happened through the elastic load balancers. Okay, so we are gonna cover in pretty detail on that, and then we have a miscellaneous topics. So there are very small topics which we have to understand. Okay, so in that we have a CloudFront. Okay, so CloudFront is a network content delivery that will understand how it works. Then we have a organizations, AWS organizations. So what happens, we can build our own organizations inside the AWS, and whatever the policy or permissions or whatever the restrictions we apply to the organizations, automatically all the accounts and all the resources in the accounts will be applied. That particular policy will be applied to all the accounts in that organizations. Suppose you are creating a 3 account, one for dev, one for test, and one for prod. Okay, in a particular organization. So we apply some policy on the organization section. Okay, and once we apply the policy in the organizations, all the accounts, okay, whatever the accounts are available, all those accounts will also have that policy applied, even the resources as well. Okay, then we have Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk is a service which is basically used to build an infrastructure for an application. So this is useful for those users who don't have a knowledge in AWS, but they want to host an application. So what happened in Elastic Beanstalk, you fill one configuration form. Okay, based on that, it will automatically create the infrastructure for you where you can host your application. So it will create load balancers, it will create auto scalings, it will do the routing, traffic, everything. Okay, and then it will provide you a DNS. When you run a DNS, you will see your application. You will be able to reach the application. Okay, so the benefit of using Elastic Beanstalk, you don't have a knowledge, but still you are able to host applications in AWS. Demerit, the most of the controls will be with AWS. Okay, because they are gonna do the configurations and everything, whatever is the recommended manner. Okay, so if you want to tweak any configurations, you will not be able to do it because you will not be having the access to do that or permissions to do that. Then we have a Kinesis. Okay, Kinesis again, streaming service. We see all the streamings, whatever happens in OTT and everything is done through the Kinesis. Okay, so there are data streaming, there are video streamings and everything. So we are, and the analytics as well. So we are gonna learn all these trees, and then we have storage gateway. So what happens? Storage gateway is useful when we have to interact with the storage resides in on-prem. Okay, so still so far, not everything is in cloud. Okay, there are few things in the on-prem as well, which is in your local environment. Okay, so if you want to interact with it, we use the storage gateway. Okay, or suppose if you want to take a backup from on-prem to the AWS cloud, we also use a storage gateway, which basically provides a gateway between the on-prem and the AWS public cloud. Okay. Similarly, we have Cognito and the Elastic Cache. Cognito is basically again a kind of Active Directory system, okay, in the AWS, where we can maintain the users, logins, and everything. Okay, and then the Elastic Cache is a caching system, okay, based on Memcache and the Redis cache, where we can have some cache enabled so that whatever the request we are making, it will be done from the cache itself. It should not go to the origin. So there will be a very fast response, okay, for the application. And then the most important topic comes as a Route 53, where we are gonna learn about the domain naming system, DNS. So first, I'm gonna teach the basics of the DNS, how it works, what all the terminologies are there and everything. And then I will move to the Route 53, how we can configure a DNS in the AWS and how we can make use of it. What are the different routing policies which Route 53 supports. Okay. So this pretty much covers everything in the AWS. So any questions or any doubt about the topics or anything?
Yeah, hi Vishal.
Yeah. Hi.
So just to understand, right? So basically, so we are looking like, yeah, I mean, it's good that you detailed it out, the complete services from AWS and the Python courses. But yeah, but the course what we are looking is more on like how these people more to crack the interviews AWS with Python. So something like we want to see the AWS services where they use in their daily Python development.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like AWS SDK or maybe Boto 3, and how these people develop the applications and how they deploy over the AWS. So if you can,
Yeah, it's like
right?
Yeah.
yeah. Just to add to what Ram is saying, Vishal, do you also teach how to build the CI/CD pipelines for Python projects
So
to?
Python is not used to build the CI/CD pipeline. Okay. So
Hmm.
that's a complete different section which comes under a DevOps,
Okay.
where we build a CI/CD pipelines and do all the continuous integrity and development stuff, where we integrate different tools with the CI/CD pipeline. That's a complete different thing. Okay.
Yeah, my question is more on AWS services, what we
Yes.
use it as part of AWS development.
Yeah.
And
that
once we have the development more across related applications or databases, so we have to understand how these can be hosted on the AWS platform.
So yeah, that's what. So first we are gonna cover the Python. Okay. And with Python, I'm gonna cover a Boto 3 application, which is basically used to development or to provision the resources in the AWS. Okay. That's where the integration happens when we write a Python code to provision the AWS services in the AWS. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go in detail with each and every resources. Okay. And when I'm going in detail for a single resources, I'm also gonna show you how we can write a Python code using the Boto 3 to do the automations. Okay. Suppose I have to create a server. Okay. There is a way I can go to the AWS management console. I can create it. Fine. But there is another way where I can write a Python code. Okay. And when I run a Python code, the server will automatically be provisioned in the AWS account. So that's where the Boto 3 comes into the picture, using which where we can integrate the provisioning or whatever the activity we want to perform in AWS accounts using the Python. Okay. So whatever you are saying, don't worry, that will be the objective of this course. Okay. So where we are going to use the Python with the Boto 3, because without Boto 3, we can't do anything with the Python. Okay. That's a library which AWS provides, or not AWS, but it's a open organization which have built that. Okay. And using that only, we will be able to connect with the AWS.
Okay.
Yeah. So any other queries? And also, as you said about the interview, okay. So interview, they are not gonna ask only the integration or write a code to the Python. Okay. They are whatever the resources you are seeing over here, or whatever the resources we have over here, or services basically, they are gonna ask about each and every service. Okay. So if you don't know about the service, you will not be able to write a Python code because you don't know what to do. Okay. That's why it's very important first to understand the services. Okay, the core services, what it does, and what are all the configurations are available which I can modify or which I have to take account when I'm writing a code. Okay, so that I'm gonna do it first, and then I'm gonna ask you, or if there is a difficulty, I'm gonna write a code to create or to develop to do the development activity on that particular AWS service. Okay.
Yeah, I think we understood. I think see more what we expect is like assigning all these tasks to these students, right?
Yeah.
Because we once we start explaining each and every resource, it takes like more days.
Yes.
Because we have like hundreds of services, hundreds of resources
Yeah.
within AWS console itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all like it's in your hand how you manage it, right? It's like
Yes.
our expectation is to cover the basics and services at within maybe in 1 month, and then next 1 month maybe it's kind of more related to Python libraries or Python application. How do you integrate, and how do you leverage these services into Python. So you're talking about the Boto 3 and all, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we are expecting in more practical way, where they can explore further after your course. So that's what the overall
Yeah. We'll do the same.
Hope you understand or
Yeah. I understood.
okay.
Let's check. Hey, how about you guys? Rest of you, do you have any questions for Vishal? Ketika, Prasad, Akhil, Susmita?
No, Anil.
Oh, as of now, no questions.
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. So is there anything else you want to cover, Vishal, or this is it?
Yeah,
your demo?
this is it. So I just want everyone that whoever is gonna attend this session.
Mhm.
So this session will be for an hour, but I want to spend another hour after the session to understand whatever is happened in that particular sessions, and whatever the assignment I will be giving, you do it. If it's not happening, or if you're not able to do it, it's fine. But obviously, once you start doing it, you will get some doubts. Okay, and that
Okay.
we will be clearing in the next session. So that is a very important part, because AWS is not a theoretical thing. Again, I'm saying, okay,
Absolutely.
how much you do, your understandings will be better for the resources. So that's what.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
And one
yeah.
last question to rest of the folks. So Vishal, this is the timing you are comfortable, right? Daily, or you are okay? Also evening times. How flexible are you?
Yeah, I'm flexible, but evening at what time? A morning time will be good, I think. This time.
Oh, morning time. This time is good for you.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. I'll check with my team. Okay, how they
Yeah,
are comfortable.
you can check with your team and the institute. And
Okay.
they will convey me. No worries.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. It was a nice session, Vishal. Yeah. Thanks very much. Okay. I'll talk to Satish. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
So how soon are you? When can you start? If at all we are okay with everything, how soon can?
We can start with tomorrow as well,
Oh,
or
is it?
from Monday. Yeah, it's up to you. Up to you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll confirm. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Vishal. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Vishal.
much.
Thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Anil. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.